Thanks for being here today. We've got a What's for Dinner coming up, so if you'd like to see what we had this week, stay tuned. I hope you'll stick around for the whole video. First thing we made this week was our loaded fries. This is kind of a weekly staple in our house. It's one of the few meals that both my kids agree on. So I'm just going ahead and getting the fries in a single layer. There was actually too much for this pan, so I went ahead and put it onto 2 pans, which actually worked perfect because my son is dairy-free, so we were putting dairy-free cheese on his, and we just split it up that way. So just making sure they're nice and thinly spread so they get nice and crispy, as we're going to be putting quite a bit of toppings on top of it. So I'm just making sure the pan is nice and hot before adding the ground beef. We're going to use about half of this ground beef in tonight's dinner, and half of it will go to tomorrow's night dinner. So we're just getting it in the pan before we're going to go ahead and add the fries to the oven, getting them going since they take the longest to cook. Excuse my terribly dirty oven. I had a pizza that dropped half of its cheese in the bottom, and I just didn't get it fully cleaned before this video, so I apologize. I mean, it's real life, right? So we're going ahead and we're browning up the hamburger here. I know everybody really loves those plastic spatulas that are specifically made for grinding up beef, but I'm old-fashioned. I just like my wooden spatula. It works for me, right? So I'm adding some salt and pepper for seasoning for now, and then we'll add some more flavorings after we take out the other half of the meat for tomorrow's meal. And then once we got done with that, I am going ahead and getting the beans on the burner to get warmed up. I just put them on low while I'm cooking everything else. Beans are such a great way to stretch your dollar, especially with the price of meat and everything going up so much with inflation. And yeah, so I'm just going to go ahead and chop up the vegetables on top while all of that is cooking. I've got some green onions, a jalapeno, some tomatoes, and lettuce. So now that the meat is nice and browned, we're going to go ahead and remove half of it for the dinner tomorrow night, and I'll let that cool and then put it in the fridge. And then we're going to go ahead and add some taco seasoning. I always make sure to buy gluten-free taco seasoning because my partner has celiac. So this Thrive one, which I'm about to add, is gluten-free, and we really enjoy the flavor of it. So maybe give it a try if you order something from Thrive. I always keep some in my pantry. Going ahead and just adding about a third of it to the meat and 2/3 to the beans. And then I'll go ahead and deglaze the pan with a little bit of water that I added to the pouch. And it looks like a lot of water, but it really cooks off, and you'll see at the end that the meat is not soupy or anything like that. It's completely cooked out. And then I'm just going to give it a really good stir. And once that is all incorporated into the beef, I'll go ahead and turn it down onto low just to keep the meat warm while we cook the rest of the food. And I'll just give the beans a quick stir and we'll get started on seasoning our fries. So the fries aren't quite done. They look like they're almost there, but you want to get them pretty well done before you add the garlic, especially if you're using the pre-minced garlic that comes in the jars because it's a little liquidy. Otherwise, your fries won't get crispy. It's about 3/4 of the way there. And then we go ahead and stir in the garlic and top it here with some Mexican blend cheese. The more cheese, the better. And, well, I guess your own personal preference. Add as much cheese as you like. If you don't like this blend, you could add whatever, mozzarella. And if you don't like taco seasoning, you could just do salt and pepper in your meat. We've done ranch packet in our meat before. Whatever kind of seasoning you like. The fries are really versatile in the way that you could prepare them, but this is one of my kids' favorite, is the taco kind. So we have the Daiya cheese. This is the one my son prefers. He likes that it melts really well, so we're going to go ahead and put some Daiya cheese on his. I already put garlic on his fries. My littlest does not like garlic or cheese on his fries, so he has a little section in the front that's just for him, and he'll just have the meat on the side and the vegetables on the side. He doesn't like his stuff all mixed up. All right, so we've got everything done now, ready to go, and we're going to go ahead and plate up our dinner. So I already put the fries and the beans and meat on here, and then I'm sprinkling on the jalapenos and green onions and the tomato, and I like a whole big topping of lettuce. My partner, not so much. He's not so much on the vegetables as I am, but I almost make mine a salad with so much lettuce. I think that's the best way to eat them personally. And then I normally try to stay away from dairy, but I'm already eating cheese tonight, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to eat the sour cream too, putting on a nice healthy serving of sour cream. And of course, we also have to top it with some Cholula hot sauce. And there we go. We have a nice, delicious loaded fries for dinner. The next meal we had this last week was fried black bean tacos. When I was younger, my mom used to make fried chicken tacos, and I loved them so much, and I still do love them. But I thought, how could I make it a little cheaper? So we are making it with, you guessed it, black beans. So I'm going ahead and taking 2 cans of black beans and opening them up. And we'll go ahead and season those up after we rinse them in the sink here, get them nice and drained. We don't really want all the liquid that's on them. And the main seasoning here is garlic. So lots and lots of garlic. I used 4 cloves to be exact. And then we just put it right in with the black beans. I don't pre-cook it. You could saute it real quick if you want to be extra, but I was in a hurry this night and I just couldn't be bothered. And they're going to fry in the oil anyways and get cooked, so it's not like you're going to be eating raw garlic. So then we're going to stir in the black beans, a healthy dose of salt since we rinsed the beans, and pepper, of course, and then we're also going to add in a palmful of cumin. I don't measure anything, as you can see. These are all just recipes out of my head, so however much you like, you could add more or less. And the one thing I forgot to add to this that I always add, and I noticed the first time I took a bite, was lime juice. So take my advice and add some lime juice to this as well, fresh or the kind in the bottle. Just probably a tablespoon to 2 tablespoons, depending on how zesty or how much you like lime juice. So go ahead and add that in there as well. And then you want to prep some where to put your tacos afterwards to drain. So I just have this container with some paper towels. And then I had pre-warmed up the tortillas in the microwave. You want them to be nice and pliable so that they'll fold without cracking. And then I'm going ahead and putting the black bean mixture right onto the taco shell. I put it in the middle at first, and I don't know what I was thinking because they need to actually be on one side. So making sure that they're nicely on one side, and you want to make sure that your oil is nice and hot. You can kind of tell the temperature of the oil by looking. That's how I do it. You can also use a thermometer if you like, but I don't know what temperature to tell you. I just look for the waves in the oil and a nice sizzle when I put the taco in, just like that is perfect. And then load it up. Don't overfill the pan. If your shell flops like that, just grab some tongs and go ahead and flip it over. And you want to put a splatter cover on this, as it will pop at you if you don't. And then about 2.5 to 3 minutes on one side, and then go ahead and give them a flip once they look nice and golden on one side. And then once you flip them, you don't want to cook them as long on the second side because you don't need to. So about probably 1.5 minutes on the other side. This isn't exact because, again, I've been making them forever and I just kind of do it by sight. And yeah, as soon as they look golden, go ahead and pull them out. Make sure you drain all the grease off of them first. Otherwise, they will be super greasy and you will lose half your grease. So going ahead and draining them before I move them over to the paper towel. And then you want to lay them flat. You can move them once you get the next batch done, but you don't want to stack them on top of each other at first, or otherwise they'll end up being kind of soggy. And then letting my oil come back up to temperature and getting out any black beans that were left in there. And then you'll just repeat until you're done with all the tacos. I added some pre-shredded lettuce. Well, I pre-shredded the lettuce, very finely shredded, so that it will fit in. And you might hear a crack when you go to put the lettuce in. It's okay. It might just crack a little on the bottom, but they do stay together as long as you don't pull really hard on them. And then I put some vegan ranch in here this day. My partner used the sour cream. You could put nothing in them as well. They taste delicious just with salsa. I used the Mateo salsa because it's the best salsa, in my opinion anyways. We have the medium heat one, and that was what we had for dinner. Fried black bean tacos, and they are always a hit. Next thing is a quinoa, kale, and black bean curry that we made out of necessity one time because it was everything we had in the pantry one night, and it's just been a hit ever since. So starting by rinsing the quinoa, and then once the quinoa is rinsed, I have 1 cup of quinoa here, fully rinsed, and then we'll add 2 cups of cold water to that and put it on the stove over medium heat actually you're going to put it on high until it boils, and then you'll turn it down to medium for 20 minutes covered. And I also like to add a vegetable bouillon cube here just for a little bit extra flavor. You could also use chicken stock or something like that instead of water. Same ratio, 1 part quinoa to 2 parts water. And then you go ahead and get that started. The next thing we're going to get started is the cilantro. We'll go ahead and get that all chopped up here, as well as about 3/4 of an onion I also chopped up. Go ahead and start on the curry sauce, going ahead and giving this coconut milk a really good shake before adding it to my pan, just because that way it's not all separated. It did still have some lumps in it, but once it comes to temperature, the lumps stir out really easily. So then I added in a whole container of this green curry paste. There's no instructions on the back of this, so I don't know if you're supposed to add the whole thing, but I always do, and I think it tastes good that way. And then adding some garlic. Don't worry, I did rinse the spoon in between takes here. Adding some garlic and then just giving it a good stir before putting it on the stove. Again, just putting it on low and letting it simmer while we cook everything else. Giving the pan a nice healthy spray. I would have just used oil, just poured some oil in, but all I had was spray oil that night. So I put a healthy spray in, and then we'll saute up the onions until they get nice and translucent before adding in the kale. So once it is getting about halfway done, I'll add a little bit of salt to both. And then we'll add some lime juice and cilantro to the curry sauce. I only added about half the cilantro because I wanted to have some cilantro at the end for topping it, and the cilantro tends to turn kind of a darker color when you cook it. So I wanted to have that fresh green flavor. And then we're going ahead. I bought pre-chopped kale just for the ease of making my life easier. And then I used about 3/4 of the bag because that's all that I could really get to fit in my pan. You could add more if you wanted. It's going to cook down quite a bit. And then we'll give that a stir, get it all stirred up with the onions. You could add a little bit more oil here if you don't notice that there's enough. If I had had some more oil, I probably would have added it. It could have used a little bit more fat when I was eating it. I wished I had added a little bit more. Anyways, adding the black beans in here and then a little bit of lime juice just to cut a little bit of the bitterness of the kale. And you want to cook it until the greens are really well wilted down, but that they still have a little bit of bite to them. And then I will fluff up the quinoa and we'll go ahead and plate up this dinner. This is a really nice, quick and easy dinner. It's really filling, lots of protein for a vegan meal, and you definitely don't miss the meat in this meal. My kids are not big fans of curry, so they didn't eat it this night. They had macaroni and cheese, but me and my partner ate all of this up. It was quite delicious. So once I get the kale and black bean mixture on top, I'll go ahead and just pour some of the curry sauce over, and like I said, top it with some of that fresh cilantro, and you have a delicious, easy weeknight meal. And for those of us that like a little bit of extra spice, I almost forgot, so don't forget the sriracha for a little bit more flavor. All right, guys, that's everything. I hope you enjoyed the video today. Until next time, peace.